It was a rainy evening when I first stepped into the world of startups. I had always been a dreamer, with visions of revolutionizing the tech industry, but never quite had the courage to take the plunge. That was until I met James. He was the kind of person who radiated confidence, the type who made you believe anything was possible. He was my boss, my mentor, and for a short while a close friend. We worked together at a tech firm where I was a junior developer. I had big ideas that I knew could change the industry. One day, during an after-hours brainstorming session, I shared my concept with James. I told him about my startup idea, a platform that would use artificial intelligence to streamline the hiring process, making it faster, more accurate, and less biased. I poured my heart into that pitch, explaining how we could integrate machine learning algorithms to identify talent based on data, rather than gut feeling or human bias. James listened intently, nodding along, offering occasional insights. I thought he was intrigued by the potential of my idea. I felt a sense of camaraderie between us, as if we were two visionaries collaborating on something groundbreaking. But little did I know, that night would change everything. A few weeks later, James called me into his office. He was unusually quiet, his face serious, almost too serious. As I entered the room, he gestured for me to sit down. The air between us felt thick, tense. "Listen," he began. "I've been thinking about that idea you shared with me. It's brilliant. In fact, it's so brilliant that I think we should take it further. I've spoken to some investors, and they're interested. I think we should start a company. I can help you with everything you need." At that moment, my heart skipped a beat. I was thrilled, but a small voice in the back of my mind started to whisper doubts. Was this the right decision? Was he really trying to help me? Or was he just trying to take advantage of my idea? But as the days passed, my excitement grew. We began working together, and James played the role of a mentor, guiding me through the process of building the product and pitching it to potential investors. It felt like we were on the verge of something huge. I was constantly in awe of his experience and network. He introduced me to venture capitalists and tech entrepreneurs who seemed genuinely interested in our vision. However, the more I worked with him, the more I noticed something strange. There were subtle moments when he would ask for access to the code or suggest small changes to the product. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, he was my boss, and he had a lot more experience than I did. But then I began to see something that made me uneasy. One evening, after working late on the platform's code, I decided to make a few updates. I was adding a feature that would help the AI algorithm better predict candidate success, something that would set our platform apart from any competitor. As I was typing away, I noticed a strange pattern in the code. It didn't look like mine. Some of the changes I had made earlier were now altered, adjusted in ways that didn't make sense. My heart sank as I realized what was happening. James had been accessing the code without my permission, making edits without consulting me. I confronted him the next day, but he played it off casually, as if I were being paranoid. "Oh, don't worry about it," he said with a smile. "I was just tweaking things a bit, to make sure we're on the right track." But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I had trusted him, and now I felt betrayed. The idea I had so passionately developed was slipping away from me. I started questioning whether he was planning to steal the company and run with it. Was this a power play, a way for him to take full credit for something that was my brainchild? I had to act fast. I couldn't let my dream slip through my fingers. But there was something I had done that would protect me, something small yet crucial. In the final stages of coding, before James started making his subtle changes, I had hidden a secret in the algorithm. It wasn't a backdoor or anything malicious, but a hidden marker, something that only I would recognize if I ever needed to prove my ownership of the idea. As the days went by, I could feel the tension growing between us. James was moving faster, taking control of everything, and I began to see less and less of my own ideas in the product. It was as if he had claimed the vision for himself, presenting it as if it were his own. Investors began to show more interest in his version of the company, and I knew then that I had to make a decision. Would I continue to watch as my dream was hijacked, or would I take a stand? But in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't going to let him take this from me. I had buried a secret in the code. It wasn't just a back door. It was my insurance. If he tried to steal my idea and claim it as his own, the truth would be revealed. Now, all I had to do was wait. Weeks passed, and I watched as James increasingly took over the company. His name appeared in every investor meeting, his face was plastered on the website, and he spoke confidently about the vision I had created. Meanwhile, I was pushed further and further into the background. The more I tried to voice my thoughts, the more my input was ignored. The dream that once felt like it was mine was quickly slipping away. One evening, as I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at the product demo on my laptop, I felt the weight of betrayal sink deeper into my chest. The algorithm had been reshaped. The features had been tweaked beyond recognition, and my core idea, the one that had made me stay up nights coding and dreaming, was now diluted to something unrecognizable. I should have confronted him. I should have called him out on what he was doing. But fear gripped me. What if he denied everything? What if I was left with nothing? James had the power. He had the influence. He had the investors, the legal backing, and he had all the right people believing in him. But what he didn't have was the truth, and that's where my secret buried in the code would give me the power I needed. It was on a Wednesday when the opportunity to act finally arrived. James had arranged a high-stakes pitch with a group of investors who had the potential to take the company public. The pitch was set to be a defining moment, one that would seal the fate of our startup, and perhaps my future. As the meeting day approached, I knew I had to make a choice. If I didn't act now, I might never get another chance. I went back to the code. Late into the night, I pored over the lines of script, searching for that hidden marker I had embedded months ago. It was a simple sequence, an innocuous string of characters buried within the most complex part of the AI algorithm, designed to be easily overlooked by anyone without the key knowledge to identify it. It wasn't just a proof of ownership. It was a time-stamped fingerprint embedded into the system, a traceable record of my original work. I knew that in the hands of the right people, the secret buried in the code could unravel everything. All it took was one look at that data, one careful examination, to prove that the algorithm I had built was my own, and not James's. But it wasn't that simple. I couldn't just show it to the investors. They would never believe me without hard evidence. I had to go public, make the story known, and force James into a corner. But there was a risk. If I made the move too soon, before the pitch, I could lose everything. The investors might pull out, the company could crumble, and James would have all the leverage. But if I waited too long, I might lose the proof entirely. If James found the marker before I could act, he could erase it, and I'd be left with nothing. As the day of the pitch drew closer, I felt the pressure mounting. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think of anything but the hidden marker and how I could use it to take back what was rightfully mine. But then, something unexpected happened. James came to me. He called me into his office, and for the first time in weeks, his tone was different. There was no more charm, no more mentor-like encouragement. His words were sharp, cold. "I know what you've done," he said, his voice low and threatening. "I know you've hidden something in the code. Don't think I haven't noticed. But here's the thing. You're in too deep now. If you try to expose me, if you try to take this away from me, I will bury you." His words hit me like a slap to the face. He knew. He knew about the marker. How? Did he discover it on his own? Or had someone else tipped him off? I had no idea. But the danger was real now. He wasn't just trying to steal my idea. He was, willing to destroy me to keep it. But I wasn't ready to back down. I looked him in the eyes, my heart racing. "You think I'm afraid of you?" I said, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and defiance. "You've taken everything from me. But you're wrong about one thing. You don't control the truth. The truth is in the code." James's expression shifted, just for a moment, but it was enough. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It was brief, but it was there. I could feel his grip on the situation slipping. "I'm not going to sit back and watch you take everything I've worked for," I said. "You may have the investors, the fame, and the recognition, but you'll never have the truth, and the truth will come out." I stood up and turned toward the door, determined to follow through with my plan. I had no idea what the next steps would be, but I couldn't let him win. Not after everything. I would expose him. I would take back what was mine, and I would show the world that it was my vision that built the company, not his. As I stepped into the hallway, I felt a surge of resolve. I didn't know how or when, but I was going to take my startup back. And the secret hidden in the code? That was the key. The days after my confrontation with James felt like a blur. I was moving on sheer adrenaline now, with one goal in mind: to expose James and reclaim what was rightfully mine. But the path wasn't clear, and I knew that I had to tread carefully. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. I couldn't afford to make any mistakes. I spent my nights working on the code, making sure the hidden marker was intact. I didn't trust James anymore, and I couldn't be certain that he wouldn't try to remove or alter it. Every line I typed was carefully checked, every algorithm reevaluated, ensuring that my fingerprint would be undeniable. In the meantime, James continued with his charade, promoting the company as his own creation. Investors were eating it up. They thought he was the genius behind the startup, and I was just some behind-the-scenes employee who had done the grunt work. It stung to see him so comfortably lying to the world, but I held on to the knowledge that I wasn't defeated yet. The truth would come to light, and James wouldn't be able to escape it. Then, the moment I had been dreading arrived. James called another high-profile meeting with the investors. This time, it was not just about the future of the company, but a crucial decision on the IPO, initial public offering, the point of no return. If they agreed, the company would go public, and James would secure his position as the face of the startup for good. I couldn't let that happen. I knew I had only one shot at this. I showed up at the meeting room with a plan. The investors were seated, their faces expectant. James, with his ever-confident smile, greeted me as if nothing had happened. But I could see the tension in his eyes. He knew what I was capable of. He knew the marker I had hidden in the code was a time bomb waiting to go off. "I've prepared a presentation for you all," I began, trying to keep my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. I could feel James watching me, a silent challenge in his eyes. I pulled up my laptop and projected the code to the screen. I didn't waste any time. I didn't need to. The hidden marker, which had been embedded deep within the system, was now the centerpiece of my presentation. The line of code was simple, but the timestamp it carried was undeniable. It was clear, it was precise, and it was there for anyone who knew where to look. "This," I said, pointing at the string of characters, "is the proof that I am the original creator of this startup. The idea, the code, the algorithm, everything. This is what James has been trying to take credit for." James stood up, his face now flushed with anger. "This is absurd. You're just trying to sabotage everything we've worked for. Don't listen to her lies." But I was ready for him. "I'm not lying," I countered, my voice steady, despite the tension in the room. "I've spent months working on this. The marker was embedded long before we even considered the investors. It's time-stamped and logged in our system. I turned to the investors, who were now shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The mood had shifted. Doubts began to creep into their expressions. One of them, an older man named Robert, leaned forward. "James, is this true?" James's confidence faltered. "That's not how it happened. She's twisting things. I've done the work to take this company to the next level." "James," Robert said sternly, "you need to be honest with us. This isn't about who's been here longer or who's put in more work. This is about who owns the idea, who created it. And from what I'm seeing, the code says it's her work." The silence in the room was deafening. James's face contorted with rage, but he didn't have an answer. The evidence was right in front of him, and there was nothing he could do to deny it. I took a deep breath, standing tall. The idea was mine from the start. I didn't steal it from anyone. I didn't take shortcuts. I poured my heart into this project. And James? He's been exploiting that trust, manipulating the situation for his own benefit. There was a moment of hesitation in the air. The investors were beginning to question everything. They had all trusted James, believed in his vision, but now they were starting to see the truth. James paced back and forth, fuming. "You think you can just take everything from me? You think you can ruin this company and make me look bad? You have no idea what you're doing." But his words were growing weaker. The investors were no longer looking at him the same way. They had started to doubt him, and that was all I needed. Robert looked at James one last time. "James, we trusted you, but now it's clear that this was built on false pretenses. We'll need to investigate this further, but as of now, the truth speaks for itself." James's expression shifted from anger to something darker, something I couldn't quite place. He stormed out of the room without another word, but I knew it wasn't over. It had only just begun. Over the next few weeks, the investigation into the company's ownership and origins began. The evidence I presented was irrefutable, and the truth slowly came to light. The investors pulled their support from James, and he was soon forced out of the company he had tried to steal. As for me, I regained control of my startup. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't fast, but eventually, I was able to rebuild from the ground up. The hidden marker in the code had been my insurance, but it was my determination, my resilience, and my belief in my own vision that had carried me through. James, on the other hand, faded into the background. The investors who had once believed in him now saw him for what he truly was, a fraud. And as for me, I had learned a valuable lesson. In the world of startups, trust is everything. But when trust is betrayed, the truth has a way of coming to the surface. No matter how deep, it's buried, the end.